Hi and welcome to Taiwan Talks. I'm your host, Rath Wang. Taiwan's Han Kuang 42 live fire drills are underway. After months of intense preparation, units now face the ultimate test, surviving conflict when all communications fail. Han Kuang began in April with tabletop war games. It then shifted to June readiness drills onto July joint defense ops. And now, the final live fire phase. Let's hear what President Lai Ching-te had to say about the ongoing exercises.
刚才我也特别提到，汉光42号实兵演习即将展开。演习会透过更贴近实际状况的情境，检验各部队的应变和协同能力。今年也会增加更多联机状况，让部队在压力下检验平时的准备是否扎实，发现问题就立即改进。
Starting with a routine PLA drill preparing to attack Taiwan, these 10 days will test whether command, mobilization, and civil resilience can sink when coercion turns into full-blown war. With me to discuss this today is Sun Mingshi, Institute for National Defense and Security Research Fellow, and joining us from Manila in the Philippines, Renato Cruz de Castro, De La Salle University, Department of International Studies Distinguished Professor. A very warm welcome to both on the show. Last year's Han Kuang drills already doubled in length. Let's hear what Defense Minister Wellington Koo says about Han Kuang 42's ability to repel invading forces.
即将展开的汉光42号演习，则是依照任务导向、为战而训的原则，对应敌情的威胁以及特务的行动，三军部队结合作战任务跟责任地形。 以全天候、连续不间断的方式来实施实战化的场地演练，除了更加贴近实际战场的环境之外，也加入高强度压力情境，还有更多的临机状况处置的内容。目的就是希望让部队在最接近实战的环境下来接受验证，进一步强化心理韧性。
Intelligence agencies also joined the April command post phase. The July joint defense phase then brought all three branches together. Now that test reaches the ground. Commanders operating without headquarters, the Danjiang Bridge denial drill, the M1A2T tanks, medical support. All these moving parts work in sync to defend Taiwan. Let me turn to you first, Dr. Shin.
Okay.
What changes do you feel will be significant and a game changer?
We know and we can check that this year exercise Han Kuang 42, some situation and training is continuous training, but some is new. For example, Han Kuang exercise is beginning from the 5th August to the 14th August and 10 days. And before this, we already finished like a war game, Han Kuang war game in April. And then in June, we have an immediate combat readiness exercise. And in July, we have a joint defense exercise. So it's very interesting because before Han Kuang, you already have two big exercises. And then we'll give our soldiers very hard testing to them, to let them know their duty, their mission in the coast defense or different service or branch. I think the first one, because the first one will be that before Han Kuang exercise, we have two big exercise. The second one will be the new is last year, we already have one reserve brigade, it's whole brigade mobilization. But this year in Han Kuang 42, we have two reserve brigade. One is Taipei City Reserve Brigade, and one is 137 Reserve Brigade. These two brigades this year also, the whole reserve brigade mobilization, and then we'll have 5,000 soldiers. They are all mobilized, and then combined together and report to the headquarters of the brigade, and then begin the training and deploy to the coast to do some defense work. The third one would be that we know that this year we also have some scenario about that internet or communication, because before the Han Kuang exercise we have the so-called urban resilience exercise. Before we call that one an exercise. In this exercise, some county will do some exercise or testing about that if your internet, if your communication is facing trouble, how to deal with civilian or official or government, how to deal with this situation. So you can see that in the future, in the few several days. Yeah.
With civilians and the military coming together, what results do you expect compared to other years? Do you see any significant changes?
Yeah, we know that from 2024 December, President Lai raised idea of thinking about that the whole of society defend resilience. It means that because Taiwan right now, we face the threat come from China, including military coercion, and then gray zone operation threat. So how to deal with that, combine that peacetime and wartime threat. So whole of society defense resilience is very important. So during the Han Kuang exercise, you can see that we take this chance to rehearsal, to practice, and to test this resilient system. So including the military, because we need to do very good defense resilience. And also psychological resilience and economic resilience or logistic resilience is all important. So if we have a time, certain time to practice and training this mechanism, I think to Taiwan is very important.
Professor De Castro, let me turn to you. In terms of what Dr. Shen mentioned, with added resilience tests and with more collaboration, what dangerous exposures do you think we could see from this?
In the case of the Philippines, of course, we just conducted the Balikatan 2026, which also involved, massive military exercise. So again, the term being used by Indo-PACOM, it's not anymore simply an exercise, it's a rehearsal. Basically involve a wide range of exercises like counter-amphibious operation, the firing, of course, of the medium-range ballistic missiles from central Philippines up to Luzon, then the deployment of the American Nemesis in islands very close to Taiwan in the Batanes. Although they were not tested, of course, they were sent there as a signal. So interestingly, while you're conducting primarily a unilateral military exercise, again, against a common potential threat, in the case of the Philippines, we do it with our treaty ally, the United States. And more interestingly, of course, in the Balikatan exercise and in the recently concluded Seleknib, you now have the active participation of the Japanese Ground Self-Defense Force, just off Batanes. So this is a very interesting developments that's happening in what we considered in the first island chain in Taiwan and in the Philippines. But unfortunately, there seems to be no coordination for obvious reason. But the fact that both countries independently are conducting, what we considered as rehearsals. They're not anymore military exercises. Rehearsals for possible eventuality, given the fact that we're both confronted with a common threat, Chinese expansion in the first island chain.
In terms of resilience, do you feel there's also more awareness in terms of dealing with civilians from the Philippine Armed Forces?
Well, in the case of the Philippines, most of the military exercises, given, of course, if you have to look at the geography of the Philippines, many of the military exercises are conducted outside of the urban area. In areas possibly where, of course, you might have a possible scenario where you have, of course, an amphibious operation being conducted by a hostile power. They're located, of course, in the northern part of Luzon. Interestingly, of course, they're also very near Taiwan and China. So in the terms of the civilians, at this point in time, when you look at the military exercises conducting there, they're conducted away from the urban centers. So there's limited or in fact no civilian participation, and like in the case in Taiwan.
Let's take a look at what Beijing had to say about Han Kuang 42.
民进党当局顽固坚持台独分裂立场，是台湾社会民生的最大祸害。他们为一党之私劳民伤财、穷兵黩武，不断制造战争焦虑，煽动两岸对立对抗，妄想把台湾老百姓绑上台独战车，等待他们的只有台独败亡的下场。
China didn't just stop there. Chinese state media, the Global Times, called Han Kuang a placebo, like an egg hitting a rock. Chinese military commentators also called Taiwan's obstacle and denial measures obsolete, saying it could be quickly overwhelmed by PLA drones, long-range rockets, and other weapons. From PLA operations around Taiwan and China-Russia patrols, Coast Guard scare tactics, live firing, to its militia-like fishing fleets, all coming out of one single actor, China. Dr. Shen, what does this say about China's conflicting messaging?
I don't expect that China or PLA will say a good word about our Han Kuang exercise. But if our Han Kuang exercise doing very good, we'll let the PLA or China understand that the Taiwan military combat readiness it go the right way. It go the right way, and then we'll make PLA think about that, how to counter, how to deal with that the Taiwan defense capability. For example, in military exercise of a PLA, they already think about how to counter that HIMARS long rocket system. It means that Taiwan already got the HIMARS system and do a very good training, and then already make some threat to China. So let's think about how to counter about this. You can see that in recent years, our Han Kuang exercise not only defend to the beach, we also have some deep depth operation or deep depth defense. It means that if PLA occupy the beachhead, not meaning that you already win. You need to face that the Taiwan defend or resist in our urban area or big city. And then you can see that at this few years, we already have a big city defense resilient or big city defense exercise. And that it will let the PLA think about that your war is not ending on the beachhead. You need to settle down different city or different urban area.
Professor De Castro, both Taiwan and the Philippines are targets of China's gray zone activities, including salami slicing and so forth. What signs do you think we should take note of if Beijing decides to escalate from just a war of words, routine intimidation, into full-blown conflict?
Well, the concern primarily of the Philippines, of course, is not simply blockade. You know, in scenarios that are being discussed inside the military camps, they're talking about the possibility of Chinese amphibious operation directed against Taiwan, a sort of a D-Day style, Normandy style operation wherein, of course, China would basically, land amphibious forces on the beaches of Taiwan, not necessarily along the Taiwan Straits. But of course, what we have been also noticed is the growing activity of the Chinese Coast Guard and the Chinese Navy in the Pacific area, in what we call the Philippine Sea area, which also raises concern on the part of the Philippines. And of course, the primary concern of the Philippines, as emphasized recently by our Secretary of National Defense, Secretary Gilbert Teodoro, is the fact that we have about 250,000 Filipinos working there that will, of course, be caught in the middle of a major conflict, of course, if with China would have to launch its armed invasion of Taiwan. He mentioned it last week in an interview. In a Taiwan contingency, in a Taiwan scenario, the Philippines cannot be neutral. So he's, in a way, sending a message. And of course, recently, President Ferdinand Marcos visited the Northern Command, which is, of course, the area of the Armed Forces of the Philippines where we have, of course, the Regional Unified Command that covers Batanes. And last year, I don't know if you remember, former General Romeo Browner said, this was April 2025, that the scope of the Armed Forces of the Philippines Northern Regional Command extends beyond the Batanes Island. So in a way, the Philippines, of course, taking into account possible worst case scenario in the case, of course, of the Taiwan contingency.
Is that why, in terms of messaging, you see the same happening to the Philippines in terms of disparaging the government, the armed forces?
Yeah, of course. And of course, you're talking about double talk. Last week, we experienced as Chinese double talk. You have the Chinese ambassador in Manila, Ambassador Jing, announcing in the celebration, the 99th anniversary celebration of the People's Liberation Army, saying that China does not intend to become an expansionist power. It does not want to become a hegemonic power. But just last week, it was announced in the Chinese media, although this will still be verified by our own Navy and Coast Guard, that they conducted a naval exercise at Scarborough Shoal, or what we call Bajo de Mansinloc. This was announced during the weekend. This was a topic of discussion in the Philippine media and in the Philippine Government Center, that you have a naval drill conducted by the People's Liberation Army's Navy and the Coast Guard. And people were basically asking, why? After, of course, you have those two tense incidents that happened just last month.
Dr. Shen,
Yeah.
in terms of Han Kuang, with the ongoing drills, how can this raise the cost for Beijing in its calculation of, say, either invasion or even in terms of just pure coercion?
When a country want to invade another country, he need to make a very clear assessment. One is this country is very weak, so it's easy to attack or invade this country. Second one would be that if this country people and military, their way of fighting is very high, maybe they will hesitate to do this action. The third one would be that if international society or many countries support this country, and then China don't have a confidence to defeat this country or the many countries, and then maybe we'll let China think more time to invade Taiwan. But how to let Taiwan defend capability shown to the PLA? Let them think, okay, invade Taiwan is not easy because you need to invade occupied official island, and then maybe Penghu, and then beachhead, and then Taiwan. We have many air weapon systems, advanced weapon systems from air, from navy, and from the land, and then let them cannot easy to occupy Taiwan, and then I think we'll make them think more about time to invade. But if Xi Jinping, because we don't know Xi Jinping was thinking, if Xi Jinping say, okay, right now Taiwan issue, Taiwan is very important, and Taiwan issue right now very seriously, and maybe move forward to the Taiwan independence, and then no matter that international society support or not, and Xi Jinping will invade Taiwan. So Taiwan defense capability make a denial deterrence, or make a deterrent that will let the PLA patch a huge world course is very important. And then let the PLA or China think it is not easy. It's very difficult to invade Taiwan because of Taiwan defense capability, because the international community support, and then especially you need to maybe support military come from United States or Japan.
In terms of denial deterrence, if you were to name one thing, what do you think that would be that would make Xi Jinping think twice?
I think including two parts. One is Taiwan. Taiwan, we know that we have many advanced weapon systems and platform. For example, we have M1A2 tank, and then we also bought new F-16V, more 16.6 F-16V for our Air Force. And then you can see from our Han Kuang exercise training, our HIMARS, our new tank, and of course, we have more drone. Our own drone or buy from the United States, and this weapon system and our training will make this denial deterrence effect to China. Of course, you can see that the number of the military, Taiwan is not enough because PLA had 2 million, but PLA will not use whole 2 million soldiers into the Taiwan Strait. Maybe 300,000, and then, so Taiwan mobilization. So why this year Han Kuang exercise is very important. We mobilize 2 reserve brigade. It's very important because you need time to increase your military personnel and your fighting power in a short time. We can through the mobilization system and training to do that.
Taiwan and other partners in the Pacific are all testing operability across longer distances. Despite differences in scale, each drill tested a different aspect. RIMPAC on maritime command, Pitch Black for dispersed air operations, Resolute Dragon with multi-domain defense. Put together, they offer a playbook for Taiwan, even if the country wasn't formally present. Coming back to Han Kuang, Dr. Shen, which procedure do you think we can leverage from these drills going on in the region?
I think in the future, if Taiwan Strait building conflict is not only Taiwan fighting or only Taiwan's war. Of course, maybe sometime we need to fight alone, but I think international community will help Taiwan. And how to combine Taiwan defense capability and know that the international community or like my country, how they fight if the Taiwan Strait conflict breaking. How to fight together. I think this is very important. So you can see that recently that big exercise, United States Congress always asked the administration of Trump, invite Taiwan to join the exercise. It means that during the war, Taiwan need to coordinate, like Ronaldo said, need to coordinate with Japan, United States, and the Philippines. And then maybe also, for example, if Taiwan's ammunition shortage, we need more location to storage or stockpile ammunition. So Japan and the Philippines also very important. So we are thinking about that. We already have some mechanism. And then recently during Han Kuang exercise, you can see that newspaper said that right now many American language teacher in Taiwan. It means that United States sent many advisors or officers of the reserve soldier to help Taiwan training and join Han Kuang exercise to give us some guidance. The guidance of in the future, if Taiwan join operation with Japan, with United States or Philippines, and then we already have some doctrine, thinking, and pretext experience.
It's great you mentioned that. Minister Hu said he appreciates the support of the U.S. PACOM in enhancing Taiwan's combat capabilities and Taiwan's cooperation with the U.S. may be far closer than many people imagine. How do you see this in terms of the Philippines?
Number one, in 2024, in April, you have the formation of the trilateral Philippine-Japan U.S. security partnership, which of course, initially it was seen as symbolic, but during the Balikatan exercise, you see this trilateral security partnership being brought in the open, especially, of course, given the very important participation of the Japanese ground self-defense force, the Japanese maritime self-defense force, and even, of course, the Japanese air defense force, which has, of course, been using Luzon as a training ground. So this is something very important. It's very significant in terms, of course, of the fact that you have this trilateral security partnership that is becoming, in a way, really showing that it has muscles, developing its muscle. And this is something that we really have to factor in, the very important role being played right now by Japan. And more interestingly, Japan's effort to develop and assist the Philippine Navy in acquiring, surface competence. I was at the Shangri-La Dialogue last June, and you have their Japanese Defense Minister, Koizumi, promising to the audience that the Philippine Navy would be acquiring 5 Abakuma-class escort destroyers. This will, of course, enable the Philippines, given that, it's still limited in terms of, comparing it to what Taiwan or Japan or even China possess, but at least it gives us a certain leverage, especially, of course, if push comes to shove in the Luzon Straits in the Bashi Channel. Plus, of course, the fact that you have now, present in the Philippines, American strategic weapon systems, specifically the United States Army Typhoon medium-range system, and of course, the United States Marine Corps Nemesis system, which are now practically based here in the Philippines, although not yet on a permanent basis. And of course, recently at Subic Bay, you have the deployment of 6 United States Coast Guard cutters. They're primarily symbolic, but nevertheless, we are seeing slowly greater American and allied strategic footprint. And of course, I also failed to mention the growing importance and significant role being played by Australia. I just attended a conference in Australia just a month ago, and the Taiwan Strait and the South China Seas are being discussed at Canberra. So, yeah, we see this happening, but of course, the true test here, and hopefully this will not happen, is if push comes to shove in the in terms of a Taiwan contingency. That is something that we are preparing for, but at the same time, this is something that we do not want to see happening, especially by next year.
Thank you, Professor De Castro, Dr. Shen. If you liked our show, please search for us on YouTube, give us a thumbs up, hit subscribe to our channel. Thank you for watching today. Stay safe and see you next time.